Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, December 5th, 2019, and today we're going to be discussing the fact that Senator Kamala Harris has dropped out of the 2020 presidential race. Now, I know this is pretty much old news to all of you guys, and I apologize for not uploading. This week was very, very busy. My birthday was earlier in the week, and I'm going to be taking the December SAT on Saturday, and I've just been pretty much overloaded with school as well, so I never really found time to go ahead and make a video. My next one will probably be on Monday, hopefully. I definitely won't make one tomorrow because I'll probably be asleep by 7. But yeah, so again, I apologize for not uploading. I really wish I could have managed my time a little bit better, but things have just been really piling up way too much. So let's just discuss this. Considering that Senator Kamala Harris was one of the top candidates I mentioned back when I started my YouTube channel. I mean, she was one of my most, earliest videos. I've made, around 700, and I guess within the first 20 or so, I definitely had mentioned Senator Kamala Harris. Though I may not have made an election prediction, I definitely made a bunch of videos about her the first year I had my channel. And, she was a top Democratic name. We saw her have early level support, and it pretty much just died down. And the same thing happened with people like Beto O'Rourke. He also had the initial hype from the 2018 Senate elections. He was actually at one point third place nationwide, which baffles me, considering that he's dropped out now, and so has Senator Kamala Harris. In fact, she's peaked at second place nationwide, which is also something to note as well. Senator Kamala Harris was a pretty strong candidate, though it was really hard to recover after losing support when it came to attacking Joe Biden. She gained support, but then couldn't defend her couldn't defend her stance on it later on, which made her lose some of those voters that had crossed over. I mean, you can literally still see on this, before they actually remove her, this is probably one of the few last times you will see her on this map, because they always remove the dropped out candidates. But if you see here, this is right after the first debate, you can see Biden dips and Harris jumps up, and that's because of her stellar debate performance. But she's just been on a pretty drastic decline. She's been going down to really low numbers, and now she ended her campaign lower than Michael Bloomberg, someone who entered the race practically, a day ago. So right now, taking a look at this data, it doesn't surprise me she dropped out. She was already in the process of cutting staffers, moving back to Iowa, and focusing all of her, efforts into fundraising, because she was running out of money. You cannot run a presidential election campaign on no funds. And she saw that the hard way. But her time probably isn't up, to be completely honest. Some people may think so because of her record as a prosecutor, but she could stay in the United States Senate and possibly run for another presidential bid later on. She's pretty young. Definitely, if there's more advancements in terms of there's already a female president or already a black female president, it really could go ahead and lead her into the presidency in the future. But now is just not her time. Now, a lot of in previous videos, I had mentioned that Pete Buttigieg actually is ahead of Senator Harris, which was true for the past couple months or so, and he recently overcame her, but now he's just drastically ahead of where she ended up. 7% ahead. I mean, they were neck and neck for quite a while back in September leading into October, but then it broke away in favor of Pete Buttigieg. He definitely took away not voters from her, but definitely took away from her, that they were no longer in that battle. And then Michael Bloomberg just came practically out of nowhere and now is in 5th place nationwide, which I think is pretty substantial, considering that Michael Bloomberg was definitely a name dropped a long time ago for 2020 and even possibly 2016. Now he's 5th place nationwide. He's ahead of Andrew Yang, ahead of Amy Klobuchar, ahead of Cory Booker, ahead of Julian Castro. So I think that this might end up be a pretty interesting race, considering how late he jumped into the game. He's definitely gained a lot of support, more support than I personally did expect for him to get. So pretty much, let's just take a look at what 538 had to say about why her campaign failed. Now, I mentioned her running out of money. That was definitely, supposedly her reason for dropping out. She had said that in her email to her supporters. Top advisors all concur that pretty much fundraising efforts was the main thing that knocked her out of the race. But as it mentions here in this 538 article, Um, she's from the state of California. Now, when you're talking about a presidential primary, you would expect to win your own home state. But if we actually look, it's on 530, not 538, Real Clear Politics. She was in fourth place in her own home state. I think she was at possibly 8%, I think, in the state, which is definitely not a good look considering that she is the senator there. So this one's actually new, but it showed her at 7%. Well, let's go ahead and see if there's another one right here. Okay, so Harris at 10%, so fourth place in her own home state. I think that is pretty surprising to me. If you look at the overall numbers there, it still does not spell out good news for her. I don't know why this doesn't click. This literally hates me so much, but it puts her at fifth place. I mean, she's behind Pete Buttigieg of all people in her own home state. Now it's not going to matter. Pretty much these voters will actually end up splitting. In, I believe, the 538 podcast, they had mentioned that they expect about 20% of her voters to go to Biden, 20% to Warren, and then about 10 to 15% for Bernie Sanders, which I think is a pretty interesting breakup, even though there aren't too many supporters to move around. 1 to 2 percentage points in a race as close as this definitely could make all the difference. But I do see a political future for Kamala Harris. She's still a senator. She still has a pretty bright future, in my opinion. So I wouldn't say she's completely out forever. So let's go ahead and take a look at these plausible theories that he had mentioned previously, but he does mention that he does not fully believe in these 100%. But the first one was that Democratic voters were not looking for an Obama-style candidate. I do not think that's true. We see that happening with Pete Buttigieg, and we saw it with Beto O'Rourke. We're sort of seeing it with Joe Biden, not so much charisma, but more so literally an Obama-style candidate. Biden, Sanders, and Warren were strong rivals. I think that's true. Kamala Harris's main demographic to appeal to was definitely the African-American group, and they were solid for Biden, and they still are throughout this entire campaign. If she wasn't winning there, she's probably not getting it anywhere else, considering on where she had tried to appeal to. It just didn't end up working. Harris herself had not been an ideal candidate. At times, she struggled to explain her policy stances and her reasons for running for president. It seemed like she was being opportunistic. She came into the United States Senate back from the state of California in 2016. She's relatively new to the whole atmosphere, even though some people had known her prior to this campaign, obviously, or prior to her Senate campaign, I believe as Attorney General from California. But pretty much, she never seemed to come off as this candidate that was a political outsider who somehow is defying all the odds now. Taking down a candidate like Hillary Clinton was one of the stronger attributes about President Barack Obama. He was able to take down an establishment candidate and win the primary and then win the election. But we didn't really see something like that with Senator Harris. And mentioning she's a woman of color. In fact, this entire debate stage coming up is a complete, I believe, entirely white debate stage. I don't think there's a single minority. Kamala Harris did qualify for the debate, but there are no minorities on it now, considering that she has dropped out. So let's take a look at this. So if you take a look, this is her vote share in national polls. So this is pretty much right before she announces, but if you remember seeing on that graph, she jumped up right after that first debate. I mean, literally, you can see it spike up, and then it gradually declines. I mean, she's at an even lower pace than she was at one point in time. And to be completely honest, I think she did make the right move by dropping out. Even though she was relatively a notable candidate, somebody that people really liked for a really long time, she started to lose a grip on those voters, and she wasn't getting it back anytime soon. She would need another debate performance, another thing with either Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Tulsi Gabbard again, whatever, and nothing really seemed to work for her. We saw a little bump up from when she was down at 3.5 all the way up to 5% nationwide, but even then, there was never really that moment where she was on full comeback. For Joe Biden, he lost a number of voters to her after the first debate, but he gained them all back. But he dips down, gains them back, dips down, gains them back, dips down, cycle continues, and we'll likely see it again, which I think is pretty interesting. It's really staggered. But Warren and Sanders are actually on a decline as well. Buttigieg is pretty much on an increase, but that's likely due to maybe smaller candidates just getting a tad bit more voters that really make all the difference when 1 to 2% are deciding these primaries and this national ranking for second or third place. Sanders is officially in second place nationwide. which is not too new, but definitely news in itself. But Senator Harris, I think when we look at candidates like her moving forward, we probably won't expect too much out of them. Kamala Harris had a really promising future in the Democratic primary, especially in this time when she came out against Joe Biden. That was a moment where a lot of people like us saw her as someone who could actually win that primary, but she wasn't able to keep the momentum. And as one of her top campaign strategists said, that they weren't running to win. They didn't have the capability to win because they didn't play their cards right. That was a really good gift that she got into second place nationwide, and she's definitely going to go down in history for being very close to securing the presidential nomination early on. Obviously, the primary season didn't happen and whatever, but she definitely as polled the highest out of any black female that we've seen on the Democratic side, obviously. So I would say that she could have broken history. She definitely could have, could have made history, but it just didn't seem like now was her time. And that really, I guess that sucks for her in a way, but at the same time, this might actually clear a pathway to her possibly running in the future with not so much in a crowded field. So this is probably the last time you'll see Senator Harris on this graph before RCP takes it away. So it'll just look like it's always been a fight between Sanders and Warren, when in fact it has not. But that's besides the point. So again, I apologize for not uploading as much as I could have. I'm really overloaded with so much, so I'm really trying to focus on that at the same time of managing everything else. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.